Here we go, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special Q&A session with the one and only Jarrod Kimber from Good Areas. Yeah, that's him. And he's wearing ProSports merch, by the way. Pakistan's 99 World Cup jersey. You guys can get your hands on it as well if you DM any of the ProSports social media accounts or Saad Nasir. He'll let you know that these
don't DM me.
Yeah.
I only have this one, and my daughter's already drawn on it.
Yeah, but these are limited edition, so they will run out. Get your hands on them quickly. And Jarrod looks quite fine, and so he's modeling it well.
Yeah, I've never had this design before, so I'm quite happy. Well, I was happy to have it before she drew on it.
Yeah, and I've obviously had you on grassroots cricket a few times, but this is the first time you're coming on ProSports. It is your ProSports debut. How does it feel?
That's not true. I was on the other day.
Yes.
You asked me some ridiculous question as I was going to bed.
That was a short clip, but this is your first podcast on ProSports. It is your debut. Do you have any message for the fans?
Welcome to ProSports.
Anyway,
they've been here before. They know.
Yeah, they have been plenty of times, and they were quite excited to have you on as well. We have 23 questions ready for you, and we're going to go one by one. So first up, we've got Essenaida 5. Hi, Jarrod. Are there any sacred cows, traditions / practices in the game that you think or maybe want to be eliminated / changed? One that comes to my mind is the coin toss.
Yeah, we've probably moved on beyond the coin toss, if we're being honest. I think that's probably one that I would do. I think test status is the most important thing to get rid of. It was brought in stupidly. I won't go into the full history of it. It's not in my latest book, but it probably will be in one of my future books about how essentially South Africa were desperate to elevate themselves over other nations. And so they formed the ICC, and that's how we ended up with test status. And at that stage, Argentina, America, Ireland were all really good cricket teams.
Denmark, was it?
No, Denmark was later, but
Okay.
yeah, Denmark is another team. And it's like, what does even test status mean at a certain point? Like, we know there are some teams that have got in early and that haven't got them. So yeah, test status I think is the stupidest thing. This is not a private members club. This is a sport.
Yeah, and it shouldn't just be Commonwealth either. You want to be able to grow the game, right?
Yeah, but that was part of the problem. South Africa put that provision in.
Yeah, and what was the ICC known as? The acronym didn't stand for International Cricket Council. It stood for Imperial something.
Imperial Cricket Conference, I think it was at that point.
That's something you guys might not have known.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Next question. Shahzaid Uzaid asks, how did Jarrod's cricket fever start? And when did he turn it into a job, Good areas and all? Can I take a stab at this?
Yeah.
Jarrod was parking cars for a living. And then Jarrod started his blog called Cricket with Balls. And that blog caught traction, and ultimately he landed a job with ESPN Cricket Info.
Yeah. That's not when I learned cricket fever, though, is it?
That's not fever, yeah. That's just how you got into the sport professionally.
Yeah, so my family was a cricket family, and I think at one stage my dad and both uncles played at the club, and my auntie and my mum were both on the committee. So everyone, a club was called Camberfield. It's sadly closed down in the last few years, but when we played there, it was called Kimberfield because there were so many Kimbers that were playing, including myself.
Wow.
Eventually. So I never knew that you weren't allowed to like cricket. It was just there, and I assumed it was awesome, and it was. And I went there. The job, pretty much, Bayram nailed it. I started a blog when I was bored, and that took off. And Good Areas is really me leaving mainstream media and doing stuff on my own, partly for a little bit more freedom, and also when coronavirus hit, there wasn't a lot of freelance opportunities. So I was like, okay, I'll start my own thing and see how it goes.
Has Louis Kimber ever played in Kimberfield?
I don't believe so. No. There was also there's been 2 Kimbers in first class cricket, but I don't know either of them.
There's been no Qazis,
really?
Unfortunately. I don't think so. I haven't ever heard of any Qazis.
Oh, you need to go to Cricket Archive.
No,
yeah, Cricket Info. You need to go to Cricket Archive. There must be.
Okay, we'll check someday. Hayes asks, will the ICC ever be held accountable for holding World Cups on facilities and pitches like Nassau County in New York, or are they just free to do what they want?
And I'll be really honest. So I did a piece, Hayes, a couple of years ago on the fact that the balls were changed by Kookaburra and the ICC didn't know. Right? And so it was put to the ICC that the balls were changed, and they were like, that's nerd stuff. We're not interested in that. That's what they will say about it. Oh, people still turned up. We got full houses. The ratings were really good. Yeah, no one got hurt. It's fine. So no, nothing like it.
They're really lucky no one got hurt.
They are very lucky no one.
Yeah, even in Trinidad. That was a bit weird, right?
Yeah, that one wasn't their fault though. I suppose that you have to say that had to be the cricket board's local cricket board's fault. Not that they're both not involved in it.
Yeah, fair enough. Aisha A asks, which individual cricketers, in your opinion, Jarrod, will dominate the game for the next decade?
Oh, that's a really fast. Laura Wolfart.
Okay.
Probably one, isn't she?
The Wolf.
I mean, she seems like a really obvious one. I'm trying to think of some of the young. Jaiswal is probably the other one.
I would definitely pick him as well.
Am I missing anyone else in the next decade?
If Naseem stays fit.
I mean, I almost wouldn't pick a fast bowler just because I mean Nazeem is a very good one. I don't know how old he is. So you're probably looking at batters who can do things over a long period of time. Jaiswal looks like the best young batter in the world.
Yeah.
By a distance at the moment. So I would certainly have him at the top of my list. And I can't think. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing anyone else. I can't think of. You would have someone like Rachin Ravindra, but I don't think Rachin Ravindra will dominate the game.
What about Fraser McGurk?
I mean, he's only going to play certain formats, and the last time I watched him bat in Major League Cricket, he didn't look particularly yesterday, like a few hours ago. We're a long way away from knowing if Fraser McGurk is a consistent player. Same with players like Abhishek Sharma as well. But yeah, no, I just think that Jaiswal and Laura Wolfart are no-brainers. Like Laura Wolfart's already dominating, and she's how old is she? She can't be old.
I mean, she already has more runs than a lot of people. I've forgotten the stat, but
she can't be old. She should play for another decade, would be my guess, and she should break every record in women's cricket.
What about Harry Brook?
I'm not 100% on Harry Brook yet.
Fair enough. Okay, there's one bonus question as well from Aisha over here. She says, if there's time, who are your favorite non-cricketing athletes of all time? Is it Jokic?
He'd probably be pretty high these days. There's actually another Denver Nuggets center, Dikembe Mutombo. Was a huge part in me getting involved in basketball was on the back of Dikembe Mutombo.
His son also plays, right?
No.
Oh, so was his dad used to play? There are two Mutombos.
There's one Mutombo.
Oh, really? Then I'm thinking of someone.
He did play for about 25 years, so it is possible that you just saw him at any stretch of time. I think he had one of the longest careers in NBA history. No, I was a huge fan of his. There's a lot of other athletes that are very important to me for different reasons, like political reasons, and the way they've stood up and everything else. But Mutombo was the guy when I was a kid who was absolutely huge and very, important to me. I used to do the finger wag, which was a big thing. So it's always Mutombo.
All right. The next question, Shahim says or asks, are there any training strategies / drills / regiments, etc. that the Pakistan team could adopt from other various foreign countries or anything from Jarrod's own experiences?
Most training methods are pretty well known. You get different coaches who like slightly different things. I've never seen the Pakistan team train and thought, oh, they're not doing this as well as another team. The issue with Pakistan is not coaching or training. It is administration. Yeah. The administration is an absolute mess. You cannot be good on the field if you're chaotic off the field, and they keep making mistakes. They keep putting the wrong people in charge. I would flush out almost everything in the PCB and start again. I would do a thorough audit of what is going on. And we've seen this. Cricket Australia did something like this before. We've seen other boards do it as well. You have to work out what is working and what is not working for you. And at the moment, I would say when we looked at the PCB, there would be about 3 things working. Yeah,
the army camp definitely is one of the things that wasn't working. And what do you think the C in PCB stands for? Circus? Chaos? One of those two, surely. Abdul TS asks, I know I've already written one question. Oh, we haven't gotten to that one yet, so we'll just ask this one before. But would you please ask Jarrod about how he deals with mental block during writing?
You mean like when I write my book?
When he wrote his book. Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. You guys can purchase your copies on Amazon. If you do not have Amazon, get in touch with me and we'll figure out a way how to get these books to you.
Yeah, also on Patreon.
Yes.
You can, if you want an autographed copy. I don't know if anyone ever would, but no, well, some people have because they bought them already.
So before you answer that question, Jarrod,
there's a chapter on Pakistan.
Yeah. Talk to me a bit about the book. What does it have in it? Some fun stories. Why should people buy it? So
I don't know how it came about, but I think I was on a podcast and this person was saying, everything's been covered. And I was like, well, all ideas haven't been covered. Like, for instance, no one's ever covered the first time that teams beat England, which is a really important thing in nation building.
Absolutely.
You know, in cricket, it's such a nationalistic sport, and the way that these things are intertwined, that these are really important stories. And I was like, no one's done that. And then I thought to myself, and I remember, you can see I've got a whiteboard on my desk. I literally wrote down first time teams beat England. And so it came about that. And I really wanted to tell the history of cricket from the other side of England. But England's still a majorly important team.
Absolutely, because they were the colonial conquerors, right?
Yeah.
And every team did want to beat them more than any other team.
And also, more so than in football, they really spread cricket.
Yeah, and they used cricket as a tool to colonize.
Of the colonization.
That this was the civilized way to live.
Yeah.
And the verbiage within cricket was also kind of targeted towards that.
So that's what the book is about. So it starts with W.G. Grace, and it goes all the way through to Rashid Khan. So you can tell it covers a long period of history. And we look at different teams and when they were successful over England and why it mattered and why it didn't matter and everything else. The Pakistan one has a great story. I won't fully ruin it for those who want to read it in the book. But essentially, Pakistan lost one of their best batters because he was having an affair, and he got caught having an affair with a starlet, and he jumped out of a window and injured himself and never went on to play have a great career. And Bayram, I believe your autographed copy says something along the lines of "Don't jump out of window."
It says Bayram, don't jump out of windows, which is fantastic.
Let me answer this question though. Look, as a sports writer, we don't really get writing block. And I tell you, I mean, there are times when it doesn't flow as well. But if you're a sports writer and at the end of the day, you've watched a game and you've got to file 700 words, you can't say to your editor, I don't know if I can do it today. You've got to file the amount of words. And I think that a lot of time what writer's block is that writing's really hard and people don't want to put the effort in. You have to force yourself. So there are tricks if you want to get around it. The first thing is research is really cool. And when you start to research, ideas will come to you. The other thing is, like, just if you know what a chapter is about or what an article is about or whatever you're doing, write down all the dot points that you want to cover and then look at the one that is interesting you the most at the moment. Even if it's in the middle of the story, start there. But I don't really believe in writer's block because it's just not the way that I have been trained. But little things like going for a walk can really help sometimes, just clearing your mind.
Okay, let's move on to the next question then.
Because you want me to press the button? Is that
Yes, I do want to.
This is your show. Why am I pressing the button?
I mean, you're always the button presser. I've never done it.
Yeah, I don't know if you're capable.
Ultra asks, why do you think that only recently has there been a push for cricket in America, given the MLC, T20 World Cup and Olympics later? And why hasn't the ICC tried to spread cricket into South America or other parts of Europe? So interestingly enough, cricket in America goes a long way back. We have a footmarks on it. You can go check that out. But there has been a push recently, and it's probably because of the obvious reason of it being a massive market.
Yeah, it's weird when people say recently because Ultra's got in there the MLC and T20 World Cup. So I reckon the push started 20 years ago. And the push started 20 years ago when cricket got more professional and realized it needed to chase other markets and make money, and that was the obvious one to go for.
Yeah.
But that's still a 20-year push. It didn't just happen recently. W.G. Grace and Don Bradman both played first-class games in America, right? So it's not as if cricket in America wasn't there. There are complications, as we said before, with the Imperial Cricket Conference, which is probably the reason we don't have America in cricket today. So it's not, the push isn't new. It's just that cricket became more professional. Why hasn't the ICC tried to spread cricket in South America and other parts? The ICC is the reason that associate cricket is as strong as it is. So the ICC has, under Bob Woolmer originally, and then under Richard Doan, is the reason that we have Papua New Guinea and Uganda and Namibia and all these teams. They were completely propped up by the ICC. The ICC does some terrible things when it comes to spreading the game. But the ICC is just the big board. So when you say the ICC, you have to know that really what you're saying is, why haven't Australia, South Africa, India, England, New Zealand and Sri Lanka done anything to spread cricket into South America and other parts of Europe? That's your real question there. Having said that, Denmark was a team they probably let get away, but cricket was big in Denmark. They've supported the Netherlands team before. I think Germany is one that we all think might come up and be a good team in the next few years. So there will be some stuff in Europe.
Joe Burns is playing for Italy.
Yeah, Italy really always has like good former players. I think Jay Dernbach played for them as well.
Oh.
South America is the other one, of course, where you have the Brazilian women's team, and it used to have Argentina, who again should have been given test match status. But the ICC is not like the NBA, right? The ICC's job is not to actually spread cricket; it is to organize events.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to understand when you're talking about something like that, what you're specifically mentioning.
Yeah. Currently, in the model that we have, it's the bilateral boards which are basically dominating that sort of, discourse. And ICC is just managing or organizing the World Cups and Champions Trophies.
They're
and
an
that sort
event.
of stuff.
They're an events
Management company.
Yeah. And so, to be honest, so up until recently, as I said, they'd really helped associate cricket. Not in a way that like transformed anyone, but if you were good enough to have a team that had some players, they would play for analysts at events. They would play for video stuff. They really go out of their way to try and help a lot of those associates at the coaching and cricket playing level. They don't give them any money because the major boards don't want to give them any money because it's their money. That's the way they look at it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move forward. Ars Khan asks, how do you rate Shan Masood as a captain and as a player?
As a player, I think he's very good at just maximizing the limited abilities that he has. And obviously I've worked with Shan a little bit before and know him a little bit. He's the sort of person that for me will overturn every stone to get himself as a better cricketer.
Even Ollie? He'll overturn Ollie's stone?
I saw him do that one. He flipped Ollie's stone. But he's the sort of person who does that sort of stuff. And he was really thorough with me. I remember he was taking notes when I was talking to him. And look, I get along with Shan very well. As a captain, I probably haven't seen him captain enough to like, and I don't really like commenting on captains all that much. I think he's got a very strong vision of what he wants the team to play like. And that is a very good start with the captain. And the rest is like, people are like, oh, he should have had a third slip in. It's like, well, the reason he didn't have a third slip in is probably because he had a short mid wicket in, which is what caused the pressure to get the edge that you're talking about. All that sort of captaincy is a bit,
I've seen him manufacture a few wickets, so
he
does that Stokes thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying he does it, but what I mean is people get either obsessed one way or the other with all that. That's like one small part of captaincy.
Yeah, fair enough. Umair322 asks, which Australian ICC trophy victory did Jarrod enjoy the most? Also, some of your favorite ICC knockout stage matches.
The first one is probably 2003 World Cup because I backpacked around it. And, I was still very much a fan back in those days. 99 and 2003 were probably the two that meant the most to me from that point, from different points of view, where I was in my life and everything. Favorite ICC knockout stage matches?
99 semi-final?
I suppose, yeah.
That's one, definitely.
Does that include the 2019 World Cup final?
It should.
That was
it's a knockout game.
The 2016 World Cup game, a Harmanpreet's game against Australia.
Brathwaite's 4 6s you're talking about, right? Yeah.
The other one. I'm trying to think what else I went to. I'm sure I've seen other games in my life. But those are the ones that instantly come to my mind as, games that I won't ever forget. Also, not a knockout game, but I was at Afghanistan's first 50 over World Cup game, which is obviously quite a big deal. So I really enjoyed that.
Nice one. Amar says, can you ask Jarrod where I can get the best palmy in Epping? By the way, Amar lives in Epping and he is your super fan. He's mentioned it to me a few times to just tell you how much he loves you. So he's asking you where the best palmy is in Epping and when you are writing your next piece on Pakistan cricket.
I think he means Palmer.
Oh, is it?
No. I'm very interesting why he's written palmy there. So chicken parma.
Yeah, chicken parmesan, right?
Yeah, it's a dreadful meal. And I don't understand why it's big in Australia. So in Australia, like every second pub, you can get a chicken parma in. And it used to be that you could get a chicken parma and a beer for like a set price.
Sounds like my kind of place.
And you would, and the whole thing was that like, that would be their way to get you into the pub. But I'm like, but if every pub has an $8 no, I don't eat chicken parma. I don't understand the idea of drying out a piece of chicken until it doesn't taste like chicken anymore and then putting breadcrumbs on it and everything else. I was always steak and pot guy back in the day. I'm trying to think of the best place. There's no great places. This is just me and Anmar talking to each other now. There's a great restaurant in South Morang, which I'm gonna. If you send me a message on Twitter, I'll ask my parents about it because my parents are coming over today. But there's a really good restaurant I like. I think it's in South Morang or Lower Plenty, which is absolutely fantastic. You get Moreton Bay bugs there. Moreton Bay bugs are the king of seafood. And there's a bunch of other like sort of cafe type places just on the edge of Epping that are absolutely incredible. But also, if you are in Epping, and there's a really cool thing to do if you've got access to a car, which is to drive out to Ned Kelly's house, which is about a 15-minute drive from Epping. Do you know who Ned Kelly is?
Nope.
He's the guy that wore the big metal helmet, was in the final shootout, and so he had a shootout with the cops, but he put on metal armor and came out and ended up getting hung. It didn't work very well for him.
Yeah.
But he's one of the most famous outlaws of all time. Mick Jagger played him in a movie once.
Oh, wow.
Heath Ledger as well, I think. But yeah, it's a really cool place to go and have a look at if you ever get a chance in Epping. There's nothing else in Epping to have a look at if you want. Or if you like to play tennis, my mum runs the tennis club, or used to run the tennis club. She's got something to do in the tennis club now, and she will, I'm sure, help you. She will talk absolute nonsense to you, and she might know where the best palmer is.
Also, your next Pakistan piece will probably just come up when they play.
Yeah, so the thing with it's a fair question. So when I worked for Cricinfo, my beats were kind of Australia, India, West Indies, Pakistan, and then Afghanistan, I suppose, off the end of that. And then when Usman came in, and then who's the other guy that writes for cricket?
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. So I think Daniel, and there was someone before Daniel as well.
Umar Farooq also.
Yes. When they came in, I wasn't needed for that as much, right? So I was kind of moved off the Pakistan beat a little bit more. Obviously, you're right about Australia, India, and England, because I'm based in England. I'm Australian, and India's the biggest team, so I cover those. So they really got me at Cricinfo to cover Afghanistan and West Indies a lot more. When I've gone freelance, I just haven't covered any. I don't think I've covered a series with Pakistan. So TalkSport have never got the rights to one. Pakistan, I think when Pakistan were here, the last time I wasn't even in the country, perhaps. Like, do you know, just random things like that. So it's not like I've stopped writing about Pakistan. It's just that sometimes happens. And if you go through my work, you'll see there are periods where I write about New Zealand and Sri Lanka like over and over again, and then you don't write about them for 5 years. So it's just a pattern thing, I think, as much as anything.
Suppose so. Sheikh asks, how concerning is the BCCI's impact and power on international cricket?
I think the BCCI's power over international cricket is not anywhere near as big as people think it is. The BCCI is not like one voice of like, we must do this. Every time I've ever dealt with the BCCI, I'll talk to 3 people, and all 3 people there will have completely differing opinions on what should happen in cricket. So if you're thinking I think there's this whole idea that it's some big monolith that we're going to do this. They all hate each other, right? Let's look at the PCB. Like, if you want to, that's what cricket boards are like. England cricket boards like that. Cricket Australia's like that. Look, the BCCI's impact and power is there, and it's like a back end thing at the moment. I always think if you read articles about like Rupert Murdoch, like so many of Rupert Murdoch's publications, right? The people will self-censor more than Rupert Murdoch would ever do. And there's a lot of decisions made in cricket that are made specifically because people are worried about what someone in India will have a problem with. Well, someone in India is worried about their local politics and what Jay Shah's had for breakfast or whatever that may be. And so, look, when it comes down to it, India is the most wealthy cricket team in the world. Until that changes, until we have like 2 or 3 nations, whether it be America, Japan, Brazil, whoever, England rise up again, India's going to have more stake in the game in the same way that when England were the most powerful country, they had a bigger stake in the game. But we should also remember that having India in cricket is the reason that it's the second biggest sport in the world. And it's always, we have to worry about India. We have to worry about India. It's like, we have a country with 1.4?
1.4, I think.
1.4 billion people who a great percentage of them love this sport.
Yeah.
And Pakistan how big is Pakistan?
It is the 5th or 6th largest population in the world, but I would
What
like
about
to
Bangladesh?
say Bangladesh, I don't know where
Top
it
20
stands.
maybe?
Yeah, definitely.
People talk about this.
You probably could add Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India and end up with 2 billion.
Yeah, well, maybe not Sri Lanka because there's like 12 people, but the other 3. But people talk about this like it's an issue. It's like, this is the strength of cricket. It's no longer the biggest sport in England. It's no longer the biggest sport in Australia. It's not the biggest sport in South Africa and New Zealand and the West Indies and all these different places. We have, let's say, 2 billion people in 3 countries where it is very high up It is probably in some cases more important than almost anything else. Right?
Yeah.
And that brings with it incredible wealth and opportunity and fandom. But it also brings complications.
Yeah.
In the same way that if America got involved with cricket tomorrow and Brazil and Russia got involved with cricket tomorrow, they would bring complications, right? I think you have to understand the full part of it.
Yeah, I think capitalism is a double-edged sword, Sheikh. There are pros and there are cons. Usher asks, who is your favorite commentator of all time? Usher's favorite commentator is Tony Greig.
Mine is Tim Lane, which is a terrible answer because no one's going to know who he is, but he was an Australian radio commentator who sadly got paid more to do Aussie rules football, so no one knows who he is.
I'm going to go Nasser Hussain because he's had some amazing one-liners over the years. Abdul TS, this is his first question.
Oh, yeah.
He says, asks, in your opinion, will the impact sub rule ever be adopted in international T20s? Can it be the wow factor that changes the game?
I think one format of cricket in the next 5 years will have benches.
And I want to see substitutions.
Yeah.
It'll make the game more exciting.
So I think, this is my problem with cricket. It's like, oh, we've got an impact sub. It's like, just shit or get, can I say shit or get off the pot?
Of course you can. You can say whatever.
Shit or get off the pot, right? What the hell do we have one impact sub for, right? If we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's have 15 players. No one can bowl, let's say, more than 25% of the game. And that's fine. And let's go about that and do it that way. Even with, you can bowl more than 25% of the game. I think T20 game would be much more interesting if Sunil Narayan or Jasprit Bumrah could bowl 10 overs from one end.
Yeah.
For me, I think it would be absolutely fascinating.
And get rid of the field restrictions.
I would, you don't want to get into my field restrictions. I would make the field restrictions way more funky. But, all those sorts of things I think are possible to us in the future. The biggest problem I have with cricket at the moment is we never had substitutions. And so that was seen as a strength of cricket, which I totally get. I totally understand it. But that does actually mean that on the fifth day, your fast bowler might not be that useful. Whereas if you had substitutions, you could bring in a spinner and you would have a better contest. And in cricket, we absolutely obsess over selections. Other sports don't do it as much because you can just change the players during the game.
Yeah.
And the other thing is injuries. So people will say to me, oh, we need injury subs in cricket. And it's like, what sport has injury subs, right? Sports don't have injury subs. They have actual substitutions. The only injury subs really are for concussions, which is a completely different issue. I just think I want to see, I call this the Scott Styris rule.
Okay.
I don't want to watch Scott Styris bowling on my TV. That no disrespect to Scott Styris, wonderful career, and I love the way he made a great role for himself, bowling absolutely dinky donkey, little outswingers and in-swingers in the middle overs of one-dayers. But I want to watch AB de Villiers facing Mitchell Johnson or Sean Tate or Nasim Shah or if Pakistan have like 7 seam bowlers, great. I want to see 7 seam bowlers bowling at 95 miles an hour each in a one-day game. I don't want to see
Nawaz.
I definitely don't want to see Nawaz.
Yeah.
I was getting Maharoof.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to see Maharoof. I mean, he's maybe too good.
Maharoof wasn't too bad.
Yeah, but he wasn't too bad. You can't tell me he's in the best 6 seam bowlers in Pakistan.
No, he was Sri Lankan.
Oh, he was too.
Yeah.
No, who's the guy I'm thinking of? Who was that all-rounder from Pakistan that he played the Test match against Ireland? It's the Pakistani Maharoof. Is the guy I was trying to say.
What arm did... Oh, Fahim Ashraf.
No, and this is no disrespect to those types of players because I love all-rounders and they have... But I don't want to watch him if you've got like an 18-year-old left-arm prodigy who can bowl 92 miles an hour or you've got a mystery spinner on your bench, right? I want to see Shamar Joseph, right? I don't want to see, Craig Brathwaite bowling.
And it's interesting how a lot of people talk about the impact sub rule and say that, oh, it's killing all-rounders. It's not killing all-rounders, it's killing shit all-rounders.
That's what I would like.
Right? Anyway, let's move forward to the next question. Thank you for yours.
Maharoof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to see him bowl.
Farviz Maharoof.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't need to see him bowl either.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that I want to see the best bowlers up against the best batters. I don't want someone who's just in because they're a little bit good at 2 things.
Fair enough. Gaurav Nandan Tripathi asks, which country, out of the ones you studied for your book, has managed to create its own cricketing identity out of post-colonial debris that inundated their cricketers, and cricket administration?
This book.
That book?
This book, are you sure?
Overthrowing Cricket's Empire, guys. Get your hands on a copy today.
Australia, really? I think Australia has the most unique cricket culture. West Indies is the only other one I'd say was really, really similar, that is so separate from England. I think Australia has what I would call the most team-based cricket culture. Everyone else is still individuals working together to play cricket, which is the England way. The Australian way is everyone plays a role in a bigger team, and it's very different. So I would actually say Australia is probably the biggest difference. And the interesting thing about Australia is it happens almost from day one. Australia starts playing cricket in a different style from England within about...
I mean, they weren't even a country when they assembled a team, right?
Yeah.
They weren't independent yet.
I would say probably by 1900, Australian cricket is noticeably different than everywhere else. And we're only talking 20, 25 years into Test cricket at that point. West Indies is an interesting one, and you can go through all the subcontinental teams who obviously have an Asian style. But I think a lot of that is to do more with local culture and to do with pitches. Whereas Australia, I don't think it really has all that much to do with it. There's something about the way that they just rebelled against the England nature of this guy bowls for himself and this guy bats for himself and this guy fields here. Whereas Australia's like, we're going to play this as a team sport. And I actually think it still holds back other cultures. So I think Australia has the most interesting identity when it comes to that. And I don't think it's a mistake that they're actually also very good at playing cricket because of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes I watch other teams, even to this day, and I think, well, this player is clearly playing for this landmark. And I don't think Australians think in that same way. I think Australians are much more willing to risk things for the team or play a role for the team in a way that other countries and other players. And this is completely comes back to England and the class system and everything else.
It was the Poms versus the convicts, was it? Something like that?
Yeah, and it was also, there's a reason that it happened. And I think the reason it happened was, if you go back and you look at a lot of those early cricketers, there was a lot of English cricketers. There was a lot, though, of Irish and Scottish cricketers. So if you look at, you know, the O'Reillys, a lot of people who were formerly of Irish background played cricket in Australia naturally, and they wanted to play it in a way that was different than England. And I think that sort of came about. But lots of other cultures have come out separately. But I think they've come out, like Asian cricket culture is way different than English cricket culture. But I think a big part of that is still the pitches and the conditions and everything else. And, you know, you still go to some of those Asian countries and you go to the Mumbai Gymkhana.
Yeah.
And it's more English than anything in England, right? Like, you know what I mean?
It's the post-colonial hangover.
Yeah. You go to Australian cricket and it doesn't really feel or look like anything from England. You know, I grew up in the 90s in Melbourne. The MCG was a vicious football crowd, right? It wasn't anything like the rest of cricket. And so I think Australia always had that healthier. But I think as we go on, more countries are just, you know, India doesn't care about England anymore. Pakistan doesn't care as much about England as they certainly did before. You know, and so that's the Asian side of things. West Indies has its own different way of doing things on different islands. So West Indies is almost separate by birthright, if that makes sense. But Australia was the one, I think, that actively chose to play cricket in a different way for a reason.
That makes sense. All right, Rachit Saran says, is Pakistan cricket too centered around the yearly match against India? Instead of following a regime, building a good team and working on their individual game, it seems the entire focus of both administrators and players is on securing a fluke victory in India match. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said so. I mean, maybe if we're just comparing it to England, it doesn't feel the same.
Also, Pakistan does not get to play India all too frequently, so they're not going to rely on that one ICC tournament. And that game probably matters more to India than Pakistan, because Pakistan cricket has been surviving without India for the longest time.
I don't know if it probably matters to both.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I think when it comes down to it, Pakistan has a reactionary media who treat cricket like a political sport.
Yep.
And people then are spending all their time reacting to that. Once you react to right-wing press, right? And, you know,
once you get sucked in by the sensationalism,
Boris Johnson, you know, Donald Trump, you know, we can go through all the. Once you go down that route, you get stuck. And what happens is you don't make decisions based on what is the best thing for cricket. You make a decision on what will alleviate the pressure point at any one time. And that is what Pakistan cricket has been doing for a very long time. And, you know, good people have worked for the PCB and good people will continue to work for the PCB. But if they can't do their job correctly because their salary is leaked or because their personal details are leaked or because some person in one part of Pakistan is attacking them because they're not supporting their part of Pakistan anymore.
Or if the government has changed.
Or the government has changed and all this sort of stuff. What the PCB needs to be is completely independent of the government, which is really tough.
And they need a players' union as well in Pakistan.
You need a players' union, and also it needs to be run independently of all the regions of Pakistan. So you can't get a job for the PCB based on you coming from Rawalpindi or from Islamabad or Karachi. Cricket Australia, Cricket New Zealand, and Cricket Ireland are the three boards that really showed what can be done from professionalism basis when you just go, we don't care where you're from. We want this person with this skill. We want this person with this skill to be involved. We're going to build a board of people that know about marketing, about social media, about business, about rights issues, because that's the future of sport. That is not how the PCB is built. And that's what it basically comes down to.
The patron-in-chief is the Prime Minister. Shouldn't be that way.
I could easily come up with the most simple plan of how to fix Pakistan cricket. But it doesn't matter because it cannot be implemented.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Panejo 22 or Panejo 22, I'm not quite sure. How do you define form and what are major factors behind it? How does a super consistent batter stop making runs or a bowler stop hitting the right spots? Is it mostly just bad luck? How does one overcome bad form? P.S. This question may be relevant to all sports. Love your work.
So I make scrambled eggs every morning, right? There's almost no day I don't make scrambled eggs unless I'm going out to a cafe. I don't make my scrambled eggs perfectly every time. And yet, I don't think there are many people in the world who've made scrambled eggs more than I have, right? And so form is, I know that from day to day, my mind is going to be slightly wavering. You know, I might get distracted. I might not crack the eggs in the right way. There might be shells in there. These might be slightly smaller eggs and I didn't realize, and so they cook quicker. I might not have put enough spinach or cheese in. I like spinach and cheese in my scrambled egg. He doesn't like eggs. I don't really understand.
Yeah, but I do love the broccoli and cheese that you make, Jarrod.
I do. That also has spinach. Everything I make has spinach in it. So when I'm doing that, it's not perfect, right? There's no way of guaranteeing as a human being that you can be an automaton. That's what you're really talking about here. So you're saying, how does a super consistent batter stop making runs? Well, they make runs for a little while and then they stop making runs, then they start making runs again because there is no one that is robotic. And that is what you were basically talking about. So with a bowler, you're looking at little things like they might actually forget which foot they take off on. And I know that sounds weird, but I know international bowlers who will tell me. I just one day couldn't remember. Sometimes their first step is shorter because they're feeling unsure. Sometimes there's something to do with the wicket. With a batter, pitches change, bowlers change, matchups change. Sometimes your back hurts, sometimes your back doesn't hurt, sometimes your hands hurt, sometimes you've got a broken finger. Sometimes the bat flow doesn't come straight, and it isn't until you stop making runs that you're like, well, and someone says to you, why is your bat coming from point and not from second slip like it used to? All these things happen. We're human.
Yeah, unless you're Jimmy Anderson.
Well, some of us are human, you're not.
Yeah. I know, and Jimmy Anderson is as close to a robot as we can get, right? In terms of being metronomic.
But I've seen Jimmy Anderson spray the ball down the leg side.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen Jimmy Anderson go to England cricket Twitter during a Jimmy Anderson spell and they will all tell you he's bowling too short. Right? It happens to everyone.
All right, Mr. X asks, is conducting an ICC tournament every year diluting the excitement and hunger for world titles?
Not for world titles, because the players still, it matters as much to them. I think it is affecting hardcore cricket fans, which I'm assuming anyone on ProSports is going to be. Casual fans are just happy that there's a World Cup on. And so they're a little bit different. And that's all the ICC and all the cricket boards care about, really, is making as much money off casual fans as possible. Eventually, it will dilute it, but, you know. But
also, if you have a different kind of World Cup or Champions Trophy every year and it's not the same event like a Wimbledon, I think it does keep the interest alive. Because you have multiple trophies at stake.
Yeah, I think what Mr. X is saying is that we just had a World Cup in October.
Yeah.
And then we have one in July. You can't take the July one as seriously.
That's true.
There's just no way. Like when I found out it was in July, I was just like, I cannot believe these things are happening so close to each other.
All right. Enter Sandman. Says, if you could build a dream commentary team to comment on a mythical match featuring all-time greats from different eras, who would be in your booth? So he's just talking about the commentary team then.
Yeah, I would have Tim Lane, which is, again, this is the most Tim Lane's ever been mentioned in Pakistan.
People are going to be Googling Tim Lane for the very first time in Pakistan.
I would have Tim Lane. I would pick Kerry O'Keefe. I would put Harsha in there as well. Do I need what have I got? I've got 2 callers, so I need someone, and I'll put in Dirt Nanas. I love me some Dirt, or Daniel Norcross.
Are you joining this commentary panel?
Or can I have Neil Manthorpe as well?
You should probably have Manthorpe.
What's his name from the West Indies?
Ian Bishop?
No, Fazia.
Fazia Muhammad?
Fazia Muhammad, I might have in there as well. I'd like Germanos and Mel Jones. And am I missing anyone else? I've got Norcross.
Dooley?
Rob Barron.
Okay. What a freak assortment of commentators.
I'm a freak assortment of a man.
Dr. Komal asks, from being considered a big one to nowhere near any top 4 batter in the world right now, what is going wrong for Babar Azam? Well, big one is also flattering for him, I suppose. Why is he not leaving captaincy even after bottling so many tournaments?
I thought he did leave the captaincy and came back and then left.
I mean, he was sacked and then he came back.
I just think he ran out of form a little bit. I think if you look at him, I think he's a batter a little bit like Usman Khawaja. He's probably a batch batter. So he'll probably go through periods for 2.5 years where he'll make all the runs. And then he'll go through periods for about a year and a half where he won't make any runs. We're probably in the back end of one of those periods. There are just players who do that. And if they knew how to fix it, they would fix it. I'd be very surprised if we don't have another 2 or 3 year period where Babar Azam is incredible again. He's probably not the level of player we thought he was going to be, though, if I'm being honest. Why is he not leaving the captaincy even after bottling so many tournaments? I mean, he hasn't bottled tournaments. The team hasn't won, which is the best way of putting it.
See, that's the laziest narrative in sport. When a team loses the final, they blame the mentality instantly.
Didn't he make it? Did they make a final under him?
They did. They made a final. They made a semi-final. And
if you think that they lost the last World Cup because of captaincy, I don't think you know a lot about cricket. What happened in the ODI World Cup?
They were really, really poor.
Didn't they just not make any runs?
Or take any wickets?
Yeah, that ain't captaincy.
They did not have a spinner. Yeah, they fielded really poorly.
Not captain.
Yeah, and plus, I agree that Babar probably shouldn't have taken the captaincy back in the circumstances that he took it back in. But he was also kind of pushed out in a weird way, right? And he resigned, but he was forced to resign, seemed like it. So lots of instability in the PCB and that volatility. Yeah, that volatility kind of trickled down to the team as well. And now it's one big political mess, even within the team. All right, Mohammad Azaz asks, is power hitting a natural gift or is it something you can add to your arsenal after making your base stronger with more of a textbook technique?
No, look, I mean, you're never going to be Corey Anderson if you're not Corey Anderson, right? Like, he's a freak of nature physically. So you're not going to be able to match that, but you can learn to hit the ball a lot further. And if you want to see the differences, have a look at what all the women did. When I first started covering women, they could not hit sixes. And then suddenly I'm covering Lizelle Lee and I saw her hit a 6 at Leicester and the MCG, which would probably be the 2 biggest playing surfaces in the world. And in both stages, she when I say she hit a 6, I mean outside the stadium, not the stadium, but outside the fence, not the women's rope. Once they started working on it, look at the difference. Do we really think in the 90s we didn't have power hitters and suddenly these days we do? It's not like we're breeding people differently, although, I mean, maybe we are. So no, you know, there is an element to it. But if you're going to be a power hitter, you do need some level of physicality to be able to do that. Like, not all people have. I don't know what you need for that, but, you know, it's a bit like fast bowling. You need an element of fast bowling to have fast muscle twitch fibers, right?
That's what you always say. Fast muscle twitch fibers.
Right.
Try to say that quickly and let's see if you can manage that. Fast muscle twitch fibers. Fast muscle twitch fibers.
And I don't know what the equivalent for being a power hitter in cricket or baseball is, but there is something that you would inherently need. But there is also the ability to be able to hit the ball further after practicing it for a long amount of time.
A lot of people talk about golf, right? How that improves their power hitting. Mohammad Hafiz was a big one, and there's some other cricketers as well. KP.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've learned a lot from golf and baseball. about where head position should be, about where our hips should be, and how we rotate our core. I mean, a big reason why people hit the ball a lot further now is in the early 2000s, they all got bulked up. And actually, it's the core that helps you because it's the core that rotates through.
Fair enough. Biased Cricket Opinions with the next question asks, he has a couple of times, or he is you, I guess, where you have mentioned that when hiring foreign coaches, Pakistan should use them to build structures rather than firefighting. Can you please expand a little on on what those structures would look like?
Yeah, I don't give a shit if they hire a foreign coach or a local coach. Like that never would matter to me in any cricket culture I've ever worked in. What they should be doing isn't about coaching. It's about having a general manager of cricket or director of cricket, whatever all those random titles are. Literally, it's about the structures. It's about, do you have a scouting network? Do you have notes on every single player? So if I say to you, there is a player in who is not yet played for a PSL team, but has played some domestic cricket, can you tell me what his stock ball is? Can you tell me what his slower ball is? Can you tell me what length he bowls most often and where he's going to be most dangerous? What is he currently working on? My guess is that no one in Pakistan cricket, other than his coach, would have that information. Now, compare that to England, where they're going, okay, there's a we just had this young off spinner from Surrey. He's not very good, but he's gone to 6'4". Can we tick a box now to say we have a 6'4" off spinner? Right? Okay, let's work on Shoaib Bashir. What does he need to learn? Okay, well, he needs to learn this and this. Great. Okay, we're going to send him off to the spin bowling academy and he's going to work with that. Then we're going to write notes down. Yeah. And we're going to say, actually, he can't do this, but he can do this. Should we push him in this direction?
And ultimately, we'll push a query through some system and it's going to chug us out, or plug and chug, right? Yeah. It's going to give us some results.
There's no reason why, especially in a country like Pakistan, where we know a lot of players come from regional areas without the background, whatever. If you have a proper system in place, these should not be surprising picks. These should be, we've been watching this guy for a little while. His numbers pinged to us. We sent a coach down to have a look at him. We've now got a dossier on him. He's 6'5" and he bowls left arm. He's about 84 miles an hour. We think we can get him to 87 miles an hour. He doesn't have a slow ball. But if we want to use him in T20s, we want him out. That is what professional cricket is going towards. And Pakistan is still like, is there an 18-year-old that's really good?
Does he pass the eye test?
Yeah. Oh, that's
is he a good stroke maker?
I honestly could not give a shit if someone passes the eye test. If they can consistently make runs, I want to pressure test that at the higher level. Yeah. Right? But I want to know everything I can about them beforehand. Do they reverse sweep? Right? How do they play against spin? When they're up against quicks, what are their get-out shots? All these sorts of things that you should know. Yeah, this is basic professional sport, and Pakistan does so little of them, right? Okay, so you've got an 18-year-old guy who bowls 90 miles an hour. Can he field?
True.
Who's been working on him to make sure that when he gets to the professional team, he doesn't use his feet like a friggin' buffoon?
And what is the player's release shot?
Yeah,
stuff like that, right? Anyway, off spinner asks, who should open for Team India in T20Is, and who is the one commentator you loved working with most?
I would probably use Jaiswal and Abhishek Sharma.
Same.
I think that works for me. Who's the commentator I love working with the most? I've been working with... I started working with Daniel Norcross. We basically learnt to commentate together. So we have a level of working that no one else is ever going to have with the two of us. Me and Neil Manthorpe have probably commentated on more things together. Neil Manthorpe's commentated with everyone, but I've commentated with Neil Manthorpe, probably have with more than anyone else. So when you're in a commentary position with those sorts of people, we know how to lead each other. We know how to poke each other. We know how to get the most out of each other.
I know how to poke you.
Yeah, not really. That's not how I like to be poked. So, having that kind of relationship with someone, but then sometimes you just have a natural chemistry. So Steve Harmison, from the first time I commentated with him, we would just naturally commentate really easily together. And Jay Dernbach is someone who I've commentated with, who was really good. Simon Dool, you mentioned before. Me and Dooley, I think, have done like 2 games together, and it was just obvious that that we talk in a similar way and we understand each other.
You were vibing.
Yeah. And whereas when I first started working with Bumble couldn't work out my vibe, and he was commentating in one way and I was commentating in another. And now me and Bumble are so much more used to each other. So, for me, it's about, there's a lot of commentators who commentate for themselves, right? And a lot of broadcasters who broadcast for themselves. And I try and broadcast for the other broadcaster and the fans, right? And the audience. And so if I can find someone who does similar to that, I'm probably going to find a way to entertain, to make that work.
Fair enough. Abdullah Ismail with the next question asks, Pakistan is in dire need of a fast bowling all-rounder. Do we have upcoming from domestic, overseas junior, or are you asking Jarrod if there's any other fast bowling all-rounder in Pakistan? I assume that's the question.
I think so.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Abdullah. I've been now working in this career since 2007. And I've never worked around a cricket team that has not said this. Every cricket. Dhoni spent 3 years at press conferences going, don't know how we're supposed to win games without a fast bowling all-rounder. It's like, well, Australia hasn't had one since Keith Miller, mate.
Well, you guys have Cameron Green right now.
Now,
yeah.
Between Keith Miller and Cameron Green, we had Shane Watson and nothing else.
Ian Harvey?
How many tests did he play?
Yeah, fair enough.
Fast bowling. Even Watson, by the time he got there, couldn't bowl fast anymore.
Also, Abdullah, Amir Jamal could develop into that. He can bat a bit and he's a pretty good test bowler, or at least has those, ingredients to succeed at that level. Let's see. Could be ruined by injury.
This is just the question that every team asks when their team isn't doing well. The truth is that the two best teams of all time, with the West Indies and Australia, did not have fast bowling all-rounders in their side. So we do think that it will solve everything.
Also, Razak and Azam Mahmood didn't solve everything.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Look, it's a great player to have if you can find one. If you can find yourself a Jason Holder or a Ben Stokes, or perhaps an Aaron Hardy, you're in a good position. But it's not the be-all and end-all. You can't obsess about what you don't have as an international team, because fast bowling all-rounders are generally the greatest athletes in cricket. Imran Khan, Keith Miller, Garfield Sobers, even Callis. His athleticism was a little bit masked, but incredible forms of athleticism. To find a player like that is almost impossible, because we're talking about a few. And the best thing I always say is, if you can tell me the entire list of players who have averaged over 40 with the bat and under 30 with the ball in the history of Test cricket.
It's not a lot.
Do you know how many it is?
No, I don't know the exact number.
One.
Imran?
Aubrey Faulkner.
Oh, Aubrey Faulkner. Right. Amar, different Amar, asks, bowling figures have always included wickets and runs given. Do you think as a bowler the runs given per wicket, which is the average, is more important than the bowls bowled per wicket, which is strike rate? I feel like strike rate is more important in Test cricket, no?
Yeah, it depends on how you look at this. There is an element of, you want to get your wickets as quickly as possible in Test cricket, because the quicker you put your wickets together, the more panic there'll be on the batting side, right? However, if you're in a situation where you can do that, chances are you are a strike bowler who is more likely than not to actually go for more runs, and so your batting team still has to overcome that. There aren't many strike bowlers who don't go for runs if they're at that level. So, Rabada could go for runs. Waqar Younis could go for runs, right? Like Mitchell Johnson would go for runs. So realistically, the average matters more overall. But the panic that a strike bowler puts on is so intense that having at least one of them in your side with the ability to take quick wickets. I remember when England had Anderson, Broad, Bresnan, Swan. All four of those guys could take wickets. I'm talking about outside of England. All four of those guys could take wickets, but they all had to work for their wickets. Whereas you throw Stephen Finn into that, and he didn't match the other guys, and they all wanted to keep the pressure on and keep it at 2.5 runs and over. But the thing that Stephen Finn allowed for in that side was the panic of the opposition, that he could bowl, he could go for 40 runs in 10 overs, and everyone's like, then his next over, he could take 2 wickets. So a strike bowler is still really important from that point of view, because of the panic and the way it changes things. And it's a bit like, strike rate doesn't matter in Test cricket, really. If you've got one batter who averages 55 and another batter who averages 50, and one's got a strike rate of 70 and the other one's got a strike rate of 55, you might still take the guy who averages 55, right? But when you are playing in a game and that guy with a strike rate of 50 is on one. Sorry, an average of 50, but a strike rate of 70 is on one, right? I could tell you teams would rather have the guy that averages 55. And so I've been, talking to a lot of former cricketers, and the one thing they say is that you have to factor in strike rate for batters in Test cricket because of the ability for them to mess up your plans, right? And that's the exact same thing when it comes to taking wickets. Jimmy Anderson takes his wickets every, whatever it is, 65 balls, 55 balls, whatever his record is.
Stain was 42 something.
Do you know what I mean? So Stain is going to cause you more of an issue even if he ended up with a higher bowling average, he didn't,
Yeah.
right? But even if he ends up with a higher bowling average, he's going to cause you more of an issue because you might lose 3 wickets in a session compared to 2. And you'll say to me, oh, but they might make more runs. Yes, but you have to think about the entire impact of a game, right? Now, your number 4 is thinking, oh my God, I'm batting already and the ball's still new and all those sorts of things.
It's different in limited overs, though. Average plays a bigger part over there because runs are more important, and containing runs is also, a thing.
So that would be economy right there.
Yes.
Which is separate again to what he's saying. Yeah, so look, the truth is that I think the reason we fetishize the most attacking players is their ability to change the narrative of a game so quickly. And so, if Waqar Younis or Dale Steyn are perfect examples of people who, when they change the game, it is so violent and so fast that it causes an impact. And even if their bowling averages are high, you still have to deal with the fact that they're going to turn the game around.
Also, there's one last question. I know we're done with the ones on the screen, but this was missed somehow, and it is from one of our Patreon subs, so I have to take it. Hamad/Sanik asks, what is the one event in Pakistan cricket history that you would wish to change and why?
Wish to change? Well, I'd play Shahid Afridi in more test matches.
Would you have played Shoaib Akhtar in the Mohali semi-final versus India?
Wasn't there a game that Imran Khan missed because he was getting like some weird procedure done?
Oh, was it?
In the 1975 or 1979 World Cup. I think if I went back in time, I'd say don't get that procedure. I'd say play in a World Cup game. Yeah. I think if I was to do it, it would be a boring answer.
What about the spot fixing stuff? Reverse that?
Yeah, I suppose fixing is the main one. But I think around the early 2000s, when they still had a great side, that's the time to come in and just put in a professional ethic and just change that. Everything in Pakistan cricket can be fixed with a proper structure, right? You're not going to, the politicians aren't going to go away, right? And the media aren't going to suddenly back off. But if you have a professional structure, everything else can go. If you continue with an amateur structure, as they have into 2024, everything always goes wrong, right? This whole thing about, Babar, bottled the captaincy and everything else. It's like, those sorts of comments don't actually help Pakistan cricket. Not having a go at the person who said them. Plenty of people say, that's not good. Babar being captain or not being captain, there's no magical person who's going to come in and do this. And I think if anything went wrong in Pakistan cricket, it's probably the idea that one magical person can come in and fix everything.
That's the idea in all of Pakistan, whether it be sport or otherwise.
And Imran Khan, you don't want to reverse the 92 World Cup because it was so awesome. But that's probably where it starts, right? Of like, one man can fix everything. And it's like, no, a structure fixes everything. We know that the love of cricket is there. We know the talent is there. We know the facilities, all these different things are available.
Getting there slowly, you know.
But even the facilities of, if you're a young person in Pakistan, you're probably going to be playing against other people who play good cricket with a tape ball, and someone might see you at 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In a way that there are many other cricket developing nations that still don't have things like that.
True.
Right? And then you will eventually get a good coach to work with you and all those sorts of things. But if you don't have a good, solid structure to base all this on, what you end up with is chaos. And I know we love the chaos of Pakistan cricket, but I don't think you're ever going to tame Pakistan players, right? But just allow them to understand where the canvas is occasionally.
Yeah, I suppose so. And don't block the NOCs. That's another one, right? Anyway, that wraps up this Q&A session. Just a quick reminder, Jarrod, bring your book back.
Oh, my book?
Yep, you guys can buy this book, right? If you have access to Amazon in the country that you live in, then you can buy it on Amazon. Otherwise, get in touch with me and we'll figure out a way how to get these to you. I'm not sure how that will be right now.
We have no idea.
We have absolutely no idea, but we could even have an arrangement where signed copies could be sent to you, right? For probably a higher fee.
It's on my Patreon. You can buy them directly,
Yeah, so there's that. And for our Patreon subs, you can also join that one, I suppose. You can have access to me both places. And
how much Bayram do you want in your life? More Bayram.
That is the only right answer. But thank you so much, Jarrod, for taking out the time.
No worries. Thank you for the shirt.
Yeah, I think that your ProSports debut went quite well. And you look amazing in that shirt as well. So to all of you people, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and comment below as well. Subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be back with another ProSports podcast soon enough, probably next week. That is all for now. Goodbye.